An injury update prior to Spurs' trip to face Nottingham Forest at the weekend states that Thomas Frank remains without a number of key players. Spurs' financial situation could hold the key to a move for Antoine Semenyo. A Spurs youngster who's tipped to be the next Ledley King signs his first professional contract with Spurs. A report claims that Harry Kane has already made a decision on his transfer away from Bayern Munich, and Palhinha hits back at criticism from Jamie Carragher. Here are your daily Tottenham news headlines. Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name's Craig and here are your daily Tottenham news headlines, where I'll be going through all the latest news, rumours and reports. If you're watching on YouTube and are not already as yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Like, share and comment below. And if you're listening on an audio platform, please do hit that follow button and leave a review if you can. Okay, let's get into it. Football.London gives an injury news update prior to Spurs' trip to face Nottingham Forest at the weekend and state that Thomas Frank remains without a number of key players. Now, most of these will know, but Brennan Johnson, the attacker, missed the Slavia Prague match midweek and was touch and go beforehand, suggesting only a minor issue. His fitness for the upcoming match against Nottingham Forest is yet to be confirmed by the manager. Dominic Solanke, of course, he's been out since August and underwent ankle surgery back in October. His return has been delayed and he has not yet rejoined the squad, with Thomas Frank refusing to put a time frame in his most recent update. Destiny Udogie, thigh injury confirmed by the manager to have a hamstring injury. He is set to be sidelined until the new year or early January. Dejan Kulusevski has been sidelined since the end of last season with a patella issue. He's been pictured back on the grass and is being managed carefully, with a possible return hinted before the end of the year, likely late December. Yves Bissouma, of course, the midfielder, was out initially for disciplinary reasons, then sustained an ankle injury on international duty in October. His absence is currently being treated as an internal matter, with an expected return date late December. James Maddison, of course, he suffered a serious ACL injury in pre-season and underwent surgery, expected to miss the majority, if not all, of the current season. Projected return summer 26. Radu Dragusin sustained serious knee injury earlier in the year, of course, has featured in a closed behind doors friendly this month, but he's still building fitness. Return date to the squad is unclear, but could be as early as mid-December. And Kota Takai, the defender, has been injured since joining Spurs. He's also featured in a recent behind closed doors friendly alongside Dragusin, but his return date is yet to be confirmed. Sportsmole report that Tottenham Hotspur could have an ace up their sleeve in the race to sign Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth. The latest report has claimed, thanks to the existence of an apparent £65 million release clause in the Cherries contract, the Ghana international could earn his dream move to a Big Six club during the January transfer window. Liverpool, Manchester City and Spurs are considered the main contenders for Semenyo's signature, although Manchester United apparently have the capability to pull off a deal too. And according to BBC Sport, Spurs are in an incredibly healthy place financially, and the Europa League holders could offer Semenyo the most personally lucrative remuneration package out of all interested parties. And partly due to a £100 million cash injection by the Lewis family, of course, the Lily Whites would therefore have no problems meeting the £65 million release clause, and they are prepared to offer Semenyo a mammoth wage to bring him to North London. According to Capology, Semenyo earns £75,000 a week at the Vitality Stadium, where he's the third highest paid player behind Evan-Neilson and Justin Kluivert. However, 14 Tottenham players pocket more than Semenyo currently, whose wage is less than half of top earners Christian Romero and Javi Simmons, who are both on £195,000 a week. Semenyo, representing Tottenham Hotspur, would be a true test, though, of loyalty for the 25-year-old, who is known to be a fan of the Lily Whites' bitter rivals Arsenal. However, the report adds that Arsenal are not expected to be serious contenders for the attacker's signature in the January transfer window for two key reasons. The Premier League leaders are firstly wary of breaching financial fair play regulations after their £250 million summer splurge, and head coach Mikel Arteta already has a wealth of attacking options at his disposal. Football.London report that Jun'ai Byfield has signed his first professional contract with Spurs as he looks to fulfil his huge potential with the club in the years ahead. The centre-back turned 17 on Saturday and accordingly put pen to paper on his first pro deal at Spurs after 2 big seasons of development at the Premier League club. Byfield was only 15 when Ange Postecoglou used him in a behind closed doors first-team friendly in the summer of 2024 against Cambridge. The teenager would occasionally train with the first team last season, and last summer Thomas Frank took him on the pre-season tour to Hong Kong and South Korea. Since then, Byfield has been named on the bench while just 16, twice in the Premier League and twice in the Champions League and once in the Carabao Cup. He was among the substitutes for Tottenham's UEFA Super Cup game against PSG in August. There is a lot of hope for Byfield's future within the club, with some tipping him as one of Spurs' brightest defensive talents to come through the academy since their former captain Ledley King. The England under-18 international centre-back returned from injury to take his place in the back line for Tottenham's club record 9-1 win against Slavia Prague in the UEFA Youth League on Tuesday afternoon. Byfield is a regular for Wayne Burnett's under-21 side despite his age, and last season captained the North London club to the under-17 Premier League Cup. Now he will be looking on and pushing to make his first team debut and continue to learn from the likes of Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven. The Mirror report that Harry Kane has decided to stay at Bayern Munich next season in a crushing blow to both Barcelona and Tottenham's chances of signing him. Kane, 32, has a release clause worth £57 million, which he must activate by the end of January in order to secure a summer transfer. Mirror Football understands that Spurs have first refusal as part of the deal that saw him join Bayern in August 2023. The England captain, whose contract expires in 2027, has enjoyed a record-breaking first half of the season, scoring 33 goals for club and country. But for now, the ex-Spurs talisman is loving life at Bayern, and German publication Bild report that he won't be triggering his clause. Kane has previously hinted that he could extend his stay in Bavaria, where his wife Katie and 4 children are happy living. In terms of staying there longer, I could definitely see that, said the 32-year-old, revealed in October. I have not had those conversations with Bayern yet, but if they were to arise, I would be willing to talk and have an honest conversation. Since then, Bayern's Director of Sport Max Ebel has confirmed that contract talks will take place in the new year. He said, "We'll sit down with Harry at the beginning of 2026 and talk about his future. It's incredible what he's achieved, and he would deserve to be among the top 3 for Ballon d'Or. He would have been number 1 to get my vote, but to get back to the question, I'm not too worried today that Harry Kane might leave us." The Standard report that João Palhinha was not exactly happy with Jamie Carragher's comments about him and criticising his ability. "Some people need to speak about another to be on the screens on TV," Palhinha said. "My life is not about that, definitely. It makes a big embarrassing to see sometimes that ex-players speak in that way. They speak and they look sometimes like superstars on the past. I don't have problems to say. I think he should have seen probably more games of me at Tottenham. I think I'm doing a top season." Analysing Spurs' limp defeat to Chelsea at the start of November, Carragher had questioned whether Palhinha was good enough to be starting for Thomas Frank's side. "Palhinha gets back on the ball and he takes 5 touches because he hasn't got the confidence or the ability," Carragher said. The basis of Carragher's criticism was Palhinha's quality on the ball and his ability to play incisive passes through the lines. However, Spurs did not sign the 30-year-old under the impression the Portuguese playmaker would turn up in North London. It is fairly obvious what Palhinha brings to Spurs' side. Palhinha is not a progressive passer and does have his limitations in his possession, but there are very few players in the world who have those qualities as well as his strengths off the ball. Spurs' challenge is finding him the right partner. For the majority of games, that should not be Rodrigo Bentancur. Archie Gray appears to fit the bill, having started the last 2 matches. For a £27 million purchase price next summer, Spurs will not find a midfielder that can do it all. Signing Palhinha is still the obvious thing to do, though, and it would be the right decision. The focus should be less on what Palhinha can't do and more on finding the right profile of player to complement him. Okay, here's my thoughts on all those stories today. Firstly, the injury news. We kind of all knew about this, didn't we? I see the newest one of those is Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson's a funny one. He hasn't really Hasn't really got much game time under Thomas Frank. It's a weird one there. Obviously, top scorer last season. Johnson just can't find his way into this team, and you sometimes get that, don't you? Certain players play all the time for certain managers, and a new manager comes in and they don't get a look in. So, could Brennan Johnson even be on the way out? Could we sell Brennan Johnson? If he's not getting much game time, he's going to want to play football. So, obviously injured at the moment, but could he be one that heads out the door? We'll have to see on that. But obviously the other players we kind of all know about, Yves Bissouma and his troubles, Dragusin, Kulusevski, Maddison, Kota Takaya. There's that fairly long list now of injured players at Spurs, but hopefully we should be getting some of them back fairly swiftly, you'd hope. Certainly in December we could need them, or we do need them over the Christmas and New Year period. December's a bit, it's not as manic this year over the Christmas, the fixtures, but getting to January and it's 2 games a week again. I think there's only 1 week in January. We haven't got a game midweek at the moment. So yeah, it's a busy time. Hopefully Spurs can get some transfers done, which leads me on nicely to this Semenyo rumour again. Seems to have died down in recent weeks. Semenyo, I've seen reports saying that he would go to Newcastle. He doesn't want to come to Spurs. Of course, you've always got three groups, if you like, around any transfer. It's the player, the selling club, and the buying club, and they've all got to agree. And if rumours are to be believed that Semenyo doesn't want to come to Spurs, then quite frankly, I don't want Semenyo. You could throw the money at it if the Lewis family, as we're led to believe, are going to support the manager, pump money into the club where required. They have done already with 100 million, although I'm not convinced that's going to go totally towards first team purchases. They could certainly afford to buy Semenyo. So if they want him, if they put in that bid match the clause in his contract to trigger it, but I would imagine Bournemouth would sell, but would the player want to come to Tottenham? That's the thing. Hearing different things. Semenyo obviously been quiet on the subject, and he's an Arsenal fan. Doesn't look like Arsenal would go in for him, but look, you never know. We've seen it before, but Arsenal are probably teetering on that FFP regulation, so they probably don't need and going to go for Semenyo in January. But we don't want to have our fingers burnt again like we did with Eze, so that's going to be an interesting one coming up. See how Spurs react to Semenyo, and indeed, even if we're going to put in a bid for him. Jun'ai Byfield, what a player. If you've seen him, or if you haven't seen him, go watch him. Make sure you see some of the games for the under-21s. He is going to be a superstar, I think, personally. Really strong player, really bright future ahead. I'm really pleased that he signed this contract with Tottenham. I do hope with a lot of our young players, like Mikey Moore included, that their paths aren't blocked. It's obviously difficult when, the team wants to buy players now. You would hope anyway, ready-made Premier League players. But I do hope that the youth still get a chance to come through. Rare that nowadays you get like the class of 92 at Old Trafford where you get 5 or 6 players come through at the same time, but wouldn't that be good to see players come through our academy and getting regular first team football and be good enough for first team football? And Jun'ai Byfield is definitely one of those players I think in the future could be massive for Spurs. So let's see how that one goes. He just needs to keep working hard and impressing the manager and the training staff. Harry Kane coming back to Spurs, he's probably a pipe dream at the moment. Kane seems to have settled now in January in Bayern Munich, so coming back in January is probably not on the cards, sadly. And even next summer, if he extends at Bayern Munich, that's probably the earliest we could get him back would be the summer of 27, and he's going to be a few years older then. Harry Kane, I think, is going to play until he's probably 40. But, whoever's manager then, would they want Kane back at 35? If he's still banging in the goals, why not? But let's put Kane rumours on the back burner. I only slung it in because it's Harry Kane, quite honestly. But look, you never know in football. Things do change quite quickly. And I'd take Kane back in a heartbeat, but probably can't see this one happening. And finally, Jamie Carragher's comments on Palhinha. Look, I like Palhinha as a player. I think he's good for certain games, certain lineups, and certainly the partnership with Bentancur just doesn't work sometimes, especially at home, and they shouldn't be paired together because of their attributes. We all know that. But Palhinha has, on the whole, impressed me since his summer move. So there's been you've only got to look at his tackling stats. Yes, he's limited on the ball, but he does give us something different. And Archie Gray certainly would be learning a lot from Palhinha. So I think it's a bit unfair criticism of Palhinha. I've seen him criticised on, certain channels will criticise Palhinha and what he can bring to the team. I certainly think he's got a role to play in Spurs. So, I don't really agree with Jamie Carragher's comments there. But as always, get down in the comments, let me know your thoughts on all these stories today or anything else you want to discuss as a Tottenham fan right now. And as always, come on you Spurs.